Hello, hello, Professor Bright. Here, finally back with the Sunless Skies. It has been some time since we last inhabited this particular captain. And I've left myself in quite the bad condition, I must say. Looking at our fuel and supplies. But, fortunately, we are a little wiser than we were way back when. In, well, the previous episode. I now know for certain this is not what I want to do. No. Don't be so hasty. We have things to purchase. Yes. Much more to purchase, I believe. Yes? Yes. That should be enough. But now, as I was saying before I was interrupted by my own desire to run around and apparently growing more capable. We'll look into that in a moment because I still want to talk a little bit. And I'm also not certain we will survive this trip. It's a little bit dicey. But I have learned through some research on my own that the anti-deceased status, well, I guess I'm just gonna die. Yes. Keeping the invisible status is not in any way helpful to us. My, oh my, oh my. Very well. Okay. But yes, anti-deceased status. As I was saying, I guarantee a new threat will come from here, but in the meantime... Oh. Well, hello. Ah, that is quite unfortunate. Yet another thing that I need to change my status for, and fortunately, changes to my status are not permanent, which was my fear previously, but now we can adjust ourselves to the various classifications of residents of the Blue Kingdom. But now this, the Great Dial Horologian, is in motion. It is the clock of the Blue Kingdom, dictating the hours of the observances, rituals which govern the progress of the spirit towards death's door. Beneath its face, thousands of spirits labor to power its revolution. Above, greater spirits of aureate majesty preside over the regular observances. It is both a symbol and vital function of the bureaucracy of the dead. Depart, the observances of Horologian are not intended for the living. And we are as yet still invisible. Shafts of light flung from death's door illuminate the face of Horologian in a brief corona of dazzling gold. For a moment, your engine is washed in a terrible radiance. Then you are away, and the dial is behind you. Ah, dearie me. Hopefully you are slower than your counterpart over there. It would be great if you were out of the way. Do you mind terribly? Thank you. These Lagoi are a threat. And quite the threat at that. Well, I mean, we might as well just kill ourselves at this point. Harumph. Yay. Professor Bright of the past, you left me in quite the position. Quite the dangerous position. And I see that, well, things are just getting better and better. Fortunately, this is the way we have to go in a bit of a loping and broad way. We must go to the Stone-Faced Court so that we may be rendered anti-deceased, and once we get that done, well, we can consider other possibilities. Still not going to use this new character point because, honestly, I'm not entirely sure that we will survive this. In fact, I'm almost positive we won't. Lagoi Patrol here. Really, thank you. That is so helpful to know. Ah, me oh my. Ah, look, more Lagoi. But I'm going to be slightly clever and lure this out of the way, so that we can eventually do some maneuvers like so. And now that Lagoi is less of a threat. Oh? I'm sorry. Recess matches one of the otherworldly artifacts. Interesting. Is that what... Could you stop that? It's really quite rude, I have to say. I'm in the middle of getting my status sorted. Do you mind? Really now. Bureaucrats. Could you stop going quite so fast? Worrisome. Well, I have fortunately made it to our destination. Erd, enter the court, if you please. Thank you. Well, I mean, we might as well write a court report, but first, ask the official to formally declare you ente-deceased. You are currently invisible, but would prefer to be seen. If successful, this will change your status to ente-deceased, and not necessarily permanently ente-deceased. A change in status, the official sighs and pinches the spot where the bridge of his nose used to be. Always me, isn't it? Well, I suppose it will cause less trouble for us both in the long run. Interesting. Before I can declare you ente-deceased, I must be satisfied you're committed to being dead one day, says the official. No dabbling in immortality, no living life to the fullest. You're just a shell of meat and juice, patiently awaiting its end. The traditional way to do that is to stage yourself a premature funeral, a public demonstration of mortality. Then there's just some paperwork, and you're officially living for death. A little bit... well... You know, it occurs to me... If we're going to have a funeral, we might as well have a proper damn funeral. Spend lavishly on flowers and fireworks. The official names a price. He'll take care of it, he assures you. The official counts your coins carefully, then flings them from the nearest window. He catches your expression. Your money is useless here, he says, defensively. The important thing is that it matters to you. Now that I know you spent what seems like a vaguely appropriate amount, I can organize some suitable decorations on your behalf. Well, that's just a little bit rude, but okay, I understand the whole idea of sacrifice being something that you value. That creating value for the person who takes your sacrifice. I understand. It's similar to how I draw on your time, dear viewer. But that's neither here nor there. A particularly heartfelt eulogy, I believe, is required. Unusual for a eulogy to be delivered by its own subject, perhaps, but at least you can throw in some good anecdotes. A suitable tribute. You sit down and compose what turns out to be a particularly stirring eulogy, if you say so yourself. Shame you won't be around to do this for the real thing. But also I could force my crew to play the role of mourners. How narcissistic am I? Am I narcissistic enough? Yes. Evidently. We invited some mourners to our funeral. You're not fussy, as long as they can turn on the waterworks at the appropriate moments. Unfortunately, the only available grievers are the graven, technically alive but far too busy with paperwork, and the spirits of the dead, whom it seems churlish to invite. You trawl the streets of Erd and the corridors of the court, but you don't manage to attract any interested mourners, just plenty of silent glares and a few following shadows. Fair enough. Treat yourself to an ostentatious funeral. Now this is the death. The procession marches through Erd, fireworks crackle overhead, wreaths of flowers line the street. The sheer spectacle is enough to attract a larger audience than expected. You sit up in your coffin, waving to your adoring mourners. Finally, you arrive at your grave. The carious official delivers last rites in a bored monotone. As you are lowered, waving into the ground, you don't lie down until the first shovelful of soil hits you in the face. After a few anxious subterranean minutes, the carious official digs you up and hands you a bundle of documents to sign. Very moving, I thought, he says, wiping an imaginary tear from his eye socket. You'll make a fine corpse one day. Ah, hopefully. I'm afraid I have different ambitions, but for our current purposes, this will do. Yes. Write a port report, though. What is there to say about the city outside the deadweight? The snow falls, the days pass, the court is where things happen. Oh. Well, that's interesting. You sit down with one of the skull-headed graven and ask her what she's heard about recent developments at the court. 2 hours and 3 of your notebooks later, she's still talking about the recent doomed efforts at bureaucratic reform, which have inevitably made everything more complicated. Several put-upon mid-level administrators have cracked under the strain, regrown their faces, and fled the White Well to try to enjoy life, she whispers the latter with a note of genuine bafflement. Curious, that. A few rounds at the tavern. Yes, this is a idea. But I'm curious. The Stone-Faced Court boasts several breweries for some reason, and provides a daily ration of beer for all the graven within its walls. But why, though? After a long day's work at the court, the graven gather here. To avoid spillage, most of them tip their drinks directly down their exposed throat, bypassing the mouth entirely. It's all vanity, one of the graven drunkenly tells you. The Sapphire King granted us an exemption from the usual laws of death, so we could carve the flesh off our faces and not die. Ha! We try so hard to obscure the fact that we're alive, but the tragedy of it is, the skulls don't fool anyone. Yes, you do appear to still be quite alive, and I'm curious why exactly the Sapphire King wanted you to look like this. Did he want you to, or did he need you to? They, I should be using. Because I'm not convinced that the Sapphire King is, well, properly... what is the gender of a star? Really? Questions upon questions upon questions, and none that I really particularly need to answer right now. The only one I need to answer is, thank God you're gonna leave me alone. Okay. Well, this does change things a little bit. As I recall, this one likes talking to the living, which would be me, yes? The lady in the house, you understand. Maybe. Am I alive enough and not invisible anymore? This whole situation is atrocious. Regardless, a smattering of dark cottages at the White Well's edge, it is surrounded by endless rows of tumbled and broken statues, mere specks against the snow. Yes, we are aware of this. Could do, but perhaps not. She squats in a black cottage at the village's heart. Its walls bulge and pulsate oddly. In a cardiac fashion, perhaps. The matronly relict. The relict is an old woman of colossal stature, as tall and broad as a wagon. Her face such a mass of wrinkles that her features are almost entirely lost. She shuffles aside and gestures silently to an armchair beside a roaring fire. You ignore the insistent skitter scratching coming from inside the walls, and you enter her parlor. Dearie. Oh. Great timing. The relict collapses into an armchair opposite you, taking up her needles. They clicker and clack, knitting together black threads that outstretch from the walls and ceiling and floor. One of the widows pours you a warmish tea, then kneels at the relict's side with her head bowed. Request permission to linger at Wellmouth. The relict pauses her weaving for a moment. A tithe of souls must first be paid, says the widow at her side. Just for a time, you understand. And if it costs so much, well, it must be worth it, yes? The relict grins, revealing why she has not spoken. The upper and lower rows of her butter-yellow teeth are fused together. She makes a soft clucking noise with her tongue, and her attendant widow hurries to fetch some parchment. Oh... what? The old woman hunches, pen in hand, armchair groaning. Her handwriting is spiky, scratchy, almost incoherent. Almost. She writes 3 simple words: "You may stay." As she finishes, the jagged scroll of ink lifts itself from the page, segments and scatters for the shadows in a dozen scuttling black forms. Only the blank page remains. Worrisome. Very worrisome. I regret this decision. Excuse me. Oh, apparently she approves of me. Well, visit her. She squats in her glistening cottage, black as tar, her needles clicker and clack, her walls fritter and scrack. Oh. Tempting. But no, not just yet. A cup of tea is placed before you. It's not quite warm. The relic reclines vastly. She looks almost placid, except for the gleam of her eyes beneath their heavy lids. Her attendant widow kneels silently at her side. What exactly are the widows? Why have they isolated themselves so far from the stone-faced court? The widow looks shocked at your impertinence, but the relic reaches out with one massive hand and pinches her attendant's ear between finger and thumbnail. A thumbnail, rather. The widow squeals. We are here to inter the failed dead, mutters the widow sulkily, rubbing her ear. The court sends us those who have failed to satisfactorily die, and we lay them to rest, usually against their will. And when we have no guests poking their noses in our business, we perform other duties, the widow smirks. Ones that even the court don't know about. Oh, please tell me more. Out of curiosity, ask about changing your status. Can the widows help change your status? Is it possible? One of the widows seems to fulfill the role of Wellmouth's archivist. She huddles alone in a library at the edge of the village, surrounded by crammed shelves, her floor obscured by a layer of damp, mangled books. When you ask her about changing her status, she scrabbles through the tome heap and retrieves, with a triumph, a moldy journal. She flips to the relevant page. Centuries past, we employed something called a spider sweeper, she says. It was a role assigned to a yoked spirit back when grandmother tolerated their presence. Perhaps ask her about it. Oh. We've learned of the existence of a long-defunct role at Wellmouth, known as the spider sweeper. Tempting as this is, and we have the ability to make ourselves more stealthy, and I mean, I desperately need to work on my veils anyway, and so, of course. And perhaps hearts as well, or perhaps, I believe a spell in prison might do us some good. The judge, stony-faced, condemned you to New Newgate, the stalactite prison of old London. Its dark was thick as tar, its cells were small as pantries. How did you spend your days there? Oh, we served our time quietly, perhaps? You notched each dismal day onto the cell wall. You steered clear of the monsters and the meek they preyed upon. You dreamed of the day of your release, or perhaps better the wolf than the lamb. You ruled your corridor like a robber king. Even the guards knew better than to push you. Your punishments were less than you deserved. Oh, I could do this, though. A potentially significant increase, I believe. From 32 to 37, though frankly I didn't pay attention to the earlier percentage. We shall see. Perfect. Hide and spy on the widow's secret ceremony. You've heard there are rites only enacted when the widows are alone. And we find ourselves a hiding place. Your engine departs with orders to return tomorrow. The widows watch it leave, veiled faces upturned. In well-rehearsed unison, they make their way to the white well. You follow at a careful distance. They stand at the well's edge and raise their voices in chittering song. A seething shudder begins beneath your feet. In a hideous rush, darkness floods from the eyes and mouths of the broken statues around Wellmouth. It's spiders, a scrabbling black vastness, an arachnid ocean. They churn and blot the snow, they overcome you, wrap you in a scurrying shroud. 8 million ancient eyes fix upon you. The rustling flood of spiders encircles the well and weaves immense gossamer displays at its rim. Whales, gardens, dragons, and castles, all manners of wonders rise and are devoured. The widow's watch, hands clasped. You lie on your back, silk-pinned. You can do nothing but stare at the sky and blink away the occasional inquisitive spider. As you stare up, you realize there is something wrong with the stars. The stars are writhing specks in the web that was the sky. "Welcome to my parlor," said the spider to the sky, a purring voice in your head. Something has noticed you. Your brain feels like it's being hammered on an anvil, beaten, yes, but also reshaped. The memories most precious to you are shuffled like cards, old wounds tease open, darkest fears are dragged out, writhing for inspection. Something is dancing inside your head, skidding excitedly from nook to crevice, but when you try to think what it might be, it scuttles into the shadows. You cease struggling and let it do its terrible work. When you wake, the spiders and gossamer and widows are gone. You're alone in the snow, surrounded by silent statues, but not quite alone. Something is wrapping your mind in silk. Yes, perhaps getting away from here is the right choice, but visit the matronly relict. My darling weaver of roads and doors, she can guide you into the well. A cup of tea is placed before you. It's not quite warm. The thing that squats on the armchair is vast and black and indistinct. You can make out gleaming eyes, bristling hairs, fangs that twitch and shudder. A long line of venom or drool dangles from its mouthparts. An attendant widow kneels silently at its side. Oh. Possibilities. Possibilities indeed. Asked to become the spider sweeper, a duty so ancient the court have forgotten to make it obsolete. Reinstating it will require a bribe, and this is possible. However, for now, we must leave this cottage. Oh, perhaps we watch one of the immortals go off to be taken away. Well, ends the same as before. The exact same as before, curiously enough. But enough of that. Goodbye, Wellmouth. You are terrifying. Very, very, very much terrifying. And I'm not sure we have a very good way back. But for our first return trip to the Sunless Skies, I must say this has been exciting. Much more exciting than I thought it would be, honestly. But for now, thank you all for your time. Note the like, comment, and subscribe buttons below. Use them responsibly, and I will see you all very soon.